Welcome back, everyone. Today, we're going deep, really deep into the life of Anne Frank.
Yeah, diving deep.
And what's really interesting is the mix of stuff you've given me this time.
Oh, yeah.
We've got documentaries, audio clips, even some text snippets. This isn't just about the diary, is it?
It is amazing, actually, how much material there is about Anne Frank's life.
It really is.
Like, we're not just reading her diary this time. We're analyzing it, summarizing it. But we also have all this other stuff.
Yeah?
Historical context, different perspectives. It's really a chance to get a broader view.
Right. And to make things even more interesting, we're also looking at Eva Schloss,
Yes.
another Jewish girl hiding in Amsterdam during the same time.
Exactly. Two girls, similar backgrounds, but, well, their stories ended very differently.
It's almost hard to believe.
Yeah, it's heartbreaking.
So by comparing them, do you think we can learn something new about this period?
I think so. I think we can go beyond just Anne Frank's story, which everyone knows, and understand the Holocaust, in a deeper way.
Okay, so both Anne and Eva, they both start with pretty normal childhoods
Right.
before everything changes.
Yeah.
And their families have to run from Germany to Amsterdam.
Hoping to find safety.
Hoping to find safety, exactly.
Which, unfortunately, doesn't really work out that way.
Yeah. Even in Amsterdam, things weren't easy.
Not at all. But even then, before things got really bad, it's interesting to see their personalities.
Yeah.
Like the sources we have describe Anne as this playful kid, talkative, loved movies,
And Eva.
total tomboy, always on her bike.
And get this, these two girls actually knew each other as kids.
Yeah.
They played together in their Amsterdam neighborhood.
Crazy, right?
It's hard to imagine knowing what was coming.
It makes you think about all the kids, right? Living their lives, no idea what's about to happen.
It's a powerful reminder
Yeah.
that behind these big historical events, there are real people, real children.
Exactly. And, as the Nazi occupation took hold, things just got harder and harder for Jewish families.
It's like this slow pressure, right?
Yeah, like a tightening grip.
First, curfews.
Then the Yellow Star.
Then, bans on public spaces.
You can't go here, can't go there.
It's terrifying to live with that constant fear.
One documentary we have actually describes this scene where Jewish people are banned from parks, right?
Yeah.
And they're forced to sit on separate benches if they're even allowed.
Just awful.
Just awful. They were taking away their rights, their dignity.
Stripping them of their humanity.
Dehumanizing an entire community.
And during all of this, Anne's diary becomes her lifeline.
Her escape.
Yeah, it's so raw and honest.
Full of teenage angst, too.
Of course. She was a teenager. But it's also, I don't know, it's like a testament to her strength.
It really is.
She wants things to be normal. She's frustrated, but she never gives up hope.
I think that's what's so powerful about the diary. It's like we can see inside her head. We can analyze how she felt, what she went through emotionally. She was dealing with normal teenage stuff. But against this backdrop of unbelievable fear.
Yeah.
And then everything changes.
Yeah. Both Anne and Ava's families get deportation notices.
For their older daughters.
They have to go into hiding.
They have no choice.
No choice.
And, Otto Frank, Anne's father, he'd been preparing for this.
Really?
Yeah, he had this secret annex in his workplace.
Wow.
Behind a bookcase. It was small, dark, but it was their only chance.
And Ava's family, did they go into hiding too?
They did, but separately, under completely different circumstances.
So what was it like for these families, hidden away from the world?
It's hard to imagine. Confined spaces, you can't go outside, you're always afraid of being discovered.
Always listening, waiting.
The Franks, there were 8 of them in that annex.
8 people?
And they had to rely on these helpers, people who risked their lives to bring them food and supplies.
Unbelievable.
The silence, the fear, the uncertainty, it's almost impossible to comprehend.
It really makes you appreciate the bravery of those helpers.
Like Miepyus.
They were true heroes, risking everything to protect these families.
Yeah, they really were. And, their stories, they tell us something else, too.
Okay.
About the strength of the human spirit.
Yeah.
Even though they were living with this constant threat,
Yeah.
they chose to help. They chose compassion, courage.
Over their own safety?
Exactly. But sadly, both families, they were betrayed in the end.
Yeah.
And sent to concentration camps. And the thing is, we still don't know exactly how they were caught.
It's a mystery. Especially with the Franks.
Right. There are all these theories. People have been trying to figure it out for years.
Trying to piece together what happened, like a historical puzzle.
Exactly. And for the longest time, nobody knew who did it.
Yeah.
But then in 2016, there was this new investigation.
Oh.
Yeah. A team led by a former FBI agent decided to look at the case again.
Using what? New technology?
Exactly. They wanted to use all the modern stuff, forensics, artificial intelligence, all that, to see if they could finally find some answers.
So they analyzed old records, witness statements, I'm guessing?
All of that. They even mapped out the whole neighborhood where the Franks were hiding.
Wow.
Trying to figure out, was there someone watching the annex? Could anyone have seen them going in or out?
That's incredible.
It was a huge undertaking.
What did they find?
Well, their analysis pointed them to a surprising suspect, a guy named Arnold Vandenberg.
Okay. And who was he?
A prominent Jewish businessman. But here's the thing.
Yeah.
He was also a member of the Jewish Council.
Wait, the Jewish Council, wasn't that the group, the body, that the Nazis forced to, implement their policies?
Exactly. They had to work with the Nazis. Imagine the pressure, the moral dilemmas they faced.
So you're saying this Vandenberg, he was caught in the middle.
Absolutely. Between his own community and the Nazi regime, it was an impossible situation.
And the investigators believe he might have betrayed the Franks to protect himself.
And his family, yeah. They found this anonymous note.
A note?
Yeah, sent to Otto Frank after the war. It actually named Vandenberg as the betrayer.
So was it real?
They used forensic techniques to authenticate it. So, yeah, they believe it's real.
But this raises so many questions, can we really judge someone who was forced to make such a choice?
It's tough, right? Because if he did do it, it was a terrible act, and it had devastating consequences.
Of course.
But at the same time, he was under immense pressure. He was trying to save his own family from being wiped out.
So it's not as simple as just saying he was a villain.
Not at all. It's a reminder that things weren't black and white back then. People had to make impossible choices.
And the investigation? What happened with that?
Well, it caused a lot of controversy. Some people praised the investigators, said they were very thorough.
Yeah.
Others weren't so sure, said there wasn't enough proof.
So it's still an open question.
In a way, yes. But I think what's important is that it made people think.
About the complexities of the situation.
Oh, yeah.
Now, this is where Eva's story becomes very different from Anne's.
Yeah. It's really heartbreaking.
Anne and her sister, they died in Bergen-Belsen.
Just weeks before liberation.
It's almost too much to bear. So close to freedom.
I know, but Eva, she and her mother, they survived Auschwitz.
It's hard to understand how some people survived while others.
Yeah, it really is.
Okay.
It almost feels random, the luck of the draw.
Yeah.
But Eva, even after everything she went through, she never gave up.
She had this incredible resilience.
She did. And later on, she actually met Otto Frank.
No way.
Yeah, they became very close. He had survived Auschwitz, too.
Wow.
It's a reminder that even in the darkest of times, human connection can make a difference.
And it was Eva who saw Anne's diary become this global phenomenon.
That's right.
So Miep Gies, one of the helpers, she saved it, right?
She did. And she gave it back to Otto after the war.
And he decided to publish it.
It wasn't an easy decision. Imagine reading your daughter's words, knowing what happened to her.
I can't even imagine.
But he did it. He shared her story with the world.
And it had a huge impact.
It did. It became a bestseller, translated into so many languages, adapted for plays and movies.
It made Anne a symbol of the Holocaust.
A voice for all those who were lost.
But it also sparked important conversations.
About prejudice, hatred, what it means to stand up for what's right.
Yeah. Even today, her words have power.
They remind us that freedom is precious, that human rights need to be protected.
But there's something else about the diary. The original version that was published, it wasn't the whole story.
That's right. Otto Frank actually edited it.
He did? Why?
I think he wanted to protect Anne's privacy.
Makes sense.
And maybe he thought some things were too sensitive for readers back then.
Like what?
Well, he took out passages about her sexuality.
Oh.
And some of her more critical observations about her parents' marriage.
Yeah, I can see why he might have done that.
It was a different time. But in later editions, those passages were put back in.
So now we have a fuller picture of who she was.
Exactly. Not just this perfect symbol of hope, but a real complex person.
It makes you wonder how people would have reacted if they'd read the complete diary back then.
It's hard to say. Maybe it would have been too shocking.
Yeah.
But maybe, just maybe, it would have resonated even more.
Because it showed her as she really was.
Vulnerable, flawed, human.
And as technology got better, Researchers found even more hidden text in the diary.
Right. In 2016, they used these special imaging techniques to uncover passages that she had pasted over.
Amazing. And what did those passages say?
They were mainly about her thoughts on sexuality, her body changing.
So it just makes her even more relatable.
Exactly. She was a real teenager, experiencing the same things teenagers go through today, even in those horrific circumstances.
So we have this incredibly powerful diary, a global phenomenon. But the question of who betrayed the Franks, that lingered for decades.
It did.
Until, like you said, this team, led by a former FBI agent, decided to take on the case.
They were determined to solve it.
Like a historical cold case.
Exactly. And they were incredibly thorough. They started by looking at all the usual suspects, right? Neighbors, people who might have sympathized with the Nazis.
Anyone who could have had a reason to betray the Franks.
Exactly. They even used software to create this detailed map of the neighborhood, looking for patterns, connections that might have been missed before.
And I remember you mentioned this AI program they use.
Oh yeah, that was groundbreaking. They could analyze huge amounts of data, connect things that seemed unrelated.
And that led them to Vandenberg.
It did. But it wasn't just the AI, it was the combination of all the evidence.
But if he was Jewish, why would he turn in other Jews? Especially during such a dangerous time.
That's the question that haunted the investigators.
And what did they come up with?
Their theory was that, as a member of the Jewish Council, Vandenberg might have had access to lists of hiding places. They believe he might have handed those lists over to the Nazis.
To save himself.
To save his family. It was a desperate act, a terrible choice, but they believe that's what happened.
It's a morally complex situation. To think that someone would be forced to make that kind of decision.
It really is, and it challenges our understanding of good and evil.
Because in those circumstances, sometimes survival means making impossible choices.
Exactly. And the investigators' conclusions about Vandenberg, they caused quite a stir.
I bet.
Some historians were impressed, said it was the most thorough investigation yet, but others weren't convinced. They said there still wasn't enough evidence to definitively say he was the betrayer.
So it's still a mystery, in a way.
I think so. But at least it's a mystery that's made people think more deeply about the choices people made during that time, the complexities of the Holocaust.
It's a reminder that history isn't always black and white.
Exactly.
It's like we have these two versions of Anne Frank, right?
Yeah.
The edited one and the complete one. And they tell different stories.
They do. It's like the edited version, it's all about innocence,
Yeah. Yeah.
But the complete one, that shows her as a real person.
Flaws and all. Which, honestly, I think makes it even more powerful.
Oh, definitely. Because we see her struggling, with jealousy, insecurity, even anger at her family.
And we've all felt those things.
Exactly. It makes her relatable, human. We see ourselves in her.
She's not this distant icon anymore. She's someone we can connect with, even though she lived so long ago.
That's the power of the complete diary, I think. It shows us that she wasn't just a victim.
Right.
She was a young woman.
A teenager.
Right. Dealing with real teenage stuff, trying to figure out who she was, what the world was about.
All while living through this horrific experience.
Exactly. And that's why her story still resonates today, I think.
Yeah.
With each new generation. Because those feelings, that search for meaning, that's universal.
Absolutely. And it's interesting how her diary has been interpreted over the years.
Oh, yeah. Like there's so many plays, movies.
Each one looking at her story from a different angle.
Right. But the core message that always comes through, hope, resilience, that spirit that young people have.
It's like her voice keeps evolving.
Reaching new audiences, and it starts new conversation.
So powerful.
It really is. Her words, they have this ability to transcend time, culture. They connect with everyone.
And they remind us that even in the darkest times, there's still beauty, still humanity.
Exactly.
Okay, so stepping back for a second, looking at everything we've learned, what does this all tell us? What can we take away from Anne Frank's story?
I think, for me, it's a reminder to look at history from different angles.
Not just the big picture.
Right. Not just the big events. We need to dig deeper. Look at the individual stories.
Like Anne's, like Eva's.
Exactly. Because history, it's not just about dates and wars.
It's about people.
Real people.
Yeah.
And their hopes, their fears, their struggles. That's what makes it real. That's what makes it matter.
And Anne's story, especially, it shows us how complex people are.
It does. We see the best of humanity, the worst of humanity, all mixed together.
Yeah. Those helpers, they were so brave, so selfless.
Right. But then you have the betrayal, the cruelty.
It makes you realize that we all have the potential for both good and evil inside us.
We do, and the choices we make, especially in times of crisis, they can have huge consequences.
That's a heavy thought.
It is, but it's a necessary one, I think, because it makes us confront uncomfortable truths.
About ourselves, about the world.
Exactly, and it makes us ask, what would I do in that situation?
Yeah. It's easy to judge from a distance.
But when you're in it, when you're faced with those impossible choices, it's different.
And I think the most important thing we can do is remember.
Absolutely.
Learn from what happened and work to make sure it never happens again. We owe it to the people who were lost.
We do. And Anne's story, it's a call to action.
It is.
It tells us that we can't just stand by and watch while injustice happens.
We'll have to speak out.
We have to fight against hatred, against intolerance. Even small acts of courage can make a difference.
And her diary, it shows the power of words.
It really does.
They can change the world. They can connect us, inspire us, even after all this time.
And they remind us that even in the darkest of times, the human spirit can survive.
So, as we wrap up this deep dive, what would you say is the biggest lesson we've learned?
I think, for me, it's about thinking critically.
Questioning what we believe.
Exactly, and looking at things from different perspectives. Because history, it's not simple.
There's no easy answers.
Right, and the conversation around Anne Frank, around the Holocaust, it's still going on.
There's always new research, new discoveries.
Which means we're always learning.
Yeah.
Always reevaluating what we thought we knew. And that's a good thing. It means we're not letting the past be forgotten.
So if you could give our listeners one piece of advice, what would it be?
I'd say, don't just read Anne's diary. Engage with it. Really think about what she's saying, what she went through, and think about the choices people made around her. The good ones, the bad ones.
And use her story as a way to look at yourself.
Yeah. Ask yourself, what can I do to make the world a better place? How can I fight against prejudice and hatred?
Powerful stuff.
It is.
Well, this deep dive has been an emotional journey,
It has.
but it's also been incredibly insightful.
It's amazing how these individual stories, they can help us understand history on a whole new level.
They make it real.
Yeah.
In Anne's legacy, her words, they continue to remind us what's important.
Hope, resilience, the power of the human spirit.
And they inspire us to work for a better future.
Exactly.
Well, thank you for joining us on this incredible journey. We'll be back soon with another deep dive into a new topic. Until then, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep searching for those moments of understanding that connect us all.